Singapore's prime retail space draws steady demand despite rising tenant turnover, with healthy occupier interest maintaining resilient leasing activity. To break down what this means for the industry, Wong Zhanyang of Cushman Wakefield joins us today. Hi, Zhanyang. So, what's fundamentally changing about which tenant categories anchor mall economics?
Oh, thank and yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. So I would say firstly, mall economics they differ across the malls, right? And really depends on their location and their concept. Like for example, for suburban malls, right, you'll be driven towards necessity retail, right? Serving, these will serve like everyday needs. Right? And these malls they tend to enjoy stable footfalls, right? Due to their high residential catchments, and they're also more resilient during economic downturns. So typically, you will see these malls they'll be anchored by a large supermarket, right? You would see enrichment centers and also a lot of F&B and services, right? So on the other hand, right, as you for those malls in the city center or in those in Orchard, right, this would tend to be typically anchored by luxury international brands, departmental stores, also a lot of F&B, right, and this really caters to the higher tourist footfalls, right, and these kind of malls they have a lot of branding value, right, especially for new international brands looking to set up a flagship store, for example.
I see. So, Zhanyang, what does the gap between fast backfills and prolonged vacancies reveal about the market split?
Yeah, so I think this really reflects that the retail market is a two-tier market, right? Where the best malls, which has a good tenant mix, and very high accessibility, these are very sought after by retailers, right? As and these malls are also able, to attract the bulk of footfalls, whereas the weaker malls, right, they have continued to struggle. So I think this trend is also reinforced by the fact that retailers are no longer focused solely on just expanding their store count, right? Instead, it is they are optimizing their footprints, which also supports demand for well located and smaller format units, and this also allows landlords to command higher rents for quality spaces.
I see. And so, Zhanyang, how much is MRT connectivity now deciding which retail assets win?
Yeah, so I would say it's very hard to really quantify this, right? Because MRT connectivity is just one of the factors, to that help create a successful mall, right? So you really need both tenant mix and accessibility. So if strong accessibility, right, which is where the MRT connectivity helps, right, it will be much easier to attract footfalls, right, because it really reduces the friction for people to come and visit, right, and also it increases the available catchment, right. You can improve in terms of travel times, it's shorter for people, so you can get more visitations to your mall. But I think equally important is also you need a strong tenant mix, right? Because this will then help you to increase dwell time, right? People will spend more time in the malls and also encourage repeat visits, right? And from this, you can get higher conversion from visitations to spending.
And Zhanyang, we are just a few months away from the end of 2026. What do you think will be the tenants that we are seeing more success in Singapore over the next few months of the year?
Yeah, so I would say, um, so I think this is also related to the first question, right? Where the more economics and in terms of the anchor tenants, these are also changing, right? So maybe just a point, like departmental stores and cinemas, right? They do still attract footfalls, but I think they're no longer a must-have in a mall, right? And we have seen also some of these spaces they've been repurposed to other trades like the F&B, other entertainment kinds, and fitness or education, right? And also potentially, right, since the unit sizes are smaller, right, higher rents can also be achieved on a per square foot basis. Right. Based on our research, F&B accounted for slightly over half of new store openings, right, in tier one malls in the first half of this year. Right, this is followed by lifestyle and fashion. So that gives you a sense of which are the kinds of trades that are doing well, right? Those that are fairly more resilient to e-commerce. Right. So yeah, in the sense also, how things are evolving. In the past, you could have a few large anchors for your mall. Now you could have several more anchor tenants, but these would be smaller, and these could be fitness, education, F&B, and these are the kinds of trades, that we see that will continue to drive retail demand in Singapore.
Zhan Yang, great to have you as always on the program. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Right. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, though, that was Wong Zhan Yang, the head of Research Singapore and C at Cushman and Wakefield. For more news, visit realestateasia.com.